Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Pickles and Vodka Podcast. It has been a hot minute since I released one of these things. I don't know if you noticed, but I've been a little quiet on the social media front. And last 2 Mondays ago, I didn't publish an episode. It's not that I didn't have one prepared. I had, but the audio that I had was not the best quality. My schedule's been crazy, and I just haven't been doing very well mentally. The podcast has definitely fallen to the wayside a little bit. I apologize, but I also know that you guys understand. I'm coming back with a great episode featuring my friend Rachael. I met her at an all-women's motorcycle campout, which was just as fun as it sounds. And last summer, I visited her in her studio in New York. She's a really badass person. She's a mom and a small business owner, and I just love her, and you will too. Before I launch into our conversation, I do want to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on with me, because for some of you listening to this is the only way you get to hear about my life. And I do want to be honest with you guys about what I'm going through, because, you think I have a mental health podcast, I must be a super healthy person. Just kidding. I don't think any of you think that about me. But I struggled a lot, and it's hard. This last week, I dropped out of the treatment program I was in. I was going 3 nights a week, and it was basically like a group therapy session. Most of the people that were there because the court told them to. So there was a lot of indifference. I did try to make the most of it for a few weeks. It was really nice to have somewhere to go, almost every night, and have the structure, and it helped me get a good chunk of sobriety under my belt. So that was good, but it was just kind of going downhill. It was draining me financially, and then my favorite counselor got fired, and that was just kind of the final straw. So I'm still seeing an individual therapist. I think it's really important to talk out some of your thoughts and processes with another person, especially someone who knows what they're doing. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you guys in the know, because I know you're all super interested about my journey through therapy. So that's kind of where I'm at. On the bright side, it's a new month. It's a new week. I'm feeling pretty good about April. The weather's been gorgeous here. I've been doing yoga, which has helped me a lot in terms of mental health. Highly recommend it. And I don't know. I feel like things can only go uphill from here. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. With that said, here is Rachael.
Hello!
Oh my God, we made it.
We did it!
Yay! Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Gosh. Of course, I'm sorry. I'm a nightmare to plan with.
Dude, me too. It's okay. Are you all set up? You ready to get rolling?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm really nervous.
No, don't worry. I don't even know what I'm doing, so you're fine.
No, it's great. I've listened to all of your episodes.
Oh my God.
You're doing a great job. It's kind of like fun to jump on here and be like, hey, you don't really know me that well. Let me give you all my dirty secrets. So part of why I'm nervous is that I'm just like really not very public about my mental health in terms of like putting it out there in the world.
Right. It's scary.
It's really scary. And I think that like it's really important, but then I don't do it. So I'm like, okay, just do it. Don't be afraid.
This is your excuse.
It is.
So do you want to just introduce yourself first and talk a little bit about who you are in a nutshell?
I could do that. So my name's Rachael. I am a small business owner. I'm a mom. I live in Brooklyn. I don't even know how to properly introduce myself anymore. It's crazy.
Right.
Having kids, it's really weird. It's a really wonderful and empowering process, but it's also, I think as a woman, really crazy because you lose some of yourself, you gain some new stuff. I don't know. It's really crazy. So then you're like, okay, who am I now? Other than a mom.
Well, yeah, it adds a whole facet to your identity, if not takes over your identity, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I obviously don't know anything about that.
Hold off.
How old is your son now?
He is 17 months old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's talking and walking. He is so smart. and so mischievous and just he's great. He's really, really wonderful, really, really sweet. But he is definitely like me and my husband's child. We're both like adrenaline junkies, obviously ride motorcycles. I was a sponsored snowboarder in high school, and just, am like living life on the edge forever. And so he's very much that in a child.
Oh.
So
Oh my
it's really
goodness.
tough because you can't take your eyes off of him. He like gets into everything, and like his new thing is like climbing on the toilet in the bathroom, but then also climbing onto the vanity is like the new thing as well. So he can like play. Yeah, it's just like, okay, cool. You're gonna like smash your head open. And there's certain things that he does that I'm like, there's part of our couch that's like not against a wall, and he likes to climb to the top of that and like lean over the edge. And I'm like, don't do that. You're going to fall on your head. Don't do that. You're going to fall on your head. And of course he thinks it's funny and it's a game. So finally the other day, actually I was like, cool, just let him fall. I mean, there was like obviously stuff piled up behind the couch, so he like actually get hurt. But, I was like, all right, you're just going to, cool, go for it, bro. See how it works out for you.
Is that how you were raised? Just like, your parents just let you fall and like let you do your thing?
I mean, I don't really remember. I'd like to say yes. I think when we were kids, it was like a different time, right? There wasn't like this hover parent concept was like not really a thing. So I think as a parent now, like that is very much how I parent, of just like, cool, like do it, figure it out. Obviously like keep him safe, but I'm not like hovering over him. Oh, don't do that. Oh, you're going to fall, like some of my friends do. And whatever, everybody's got their own style. It's not, judgment either way.
Exactly.
But he definitely pushes the boundaries because he has that freedom. So,
yeah,
a good thing or not, we'll see, I guess.
With my parents, like they had so many kids. I feel like with me, I was the firstborn. They were really protective. But then as they kept having more kids, they were like, screw it. They'll figure stuff out. They'll be fine.
Yeah,
I think it's healthy.
It is healthy. And it's funny, like I was never, he's obviously my first kid, but I really never experienced that like desire to really protect them or be really worried. I don't know. I think it's something about like my probably mental health where I'm not really afraid of a whole lot. Like I'm not really scared of what the future holds or what might happen. Like it's like, what's going to happen is going to happen. You can't really like stop anything. Right. So like, why waste the energy on like worrying about it? So that definitely comes to play in, parenting style and like how raising the little guy is. But
that's a really healthy mindset to have. Did you always feel that way?
Honestly, I'm just really selfish. I am just like not good at like being so worried about someone else. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make me sound like a terrible parent? Oh,
no,
God.
I think worry is like a toxic thing sometimes. When you worry about someone else, it's just all this negative energy.
When that's what you're putting out there and that's what you're focusing on, like I just feel like it's super unhealthy. Certain emotions like fear and anger, like I just find to be super, super toxic. And I just kind of, over the years have just decided that like, I don't really want them to be a part of my life. I mean, granted, that doesn't mean I'm never angry or never afraid or, never worried. Like, obviously I'm a normal person and I still have those, but especially when I was pregnant, I really made an effort to be like, in the city, I live in Brooklyn. It's fucking rough here and people are assholes. And like, you can get enraged so easily by walking down the street. And when I became pregnant, I just like was like, you know what? Like everything that I experienced, this little guy is going to experience. And I just really don't want those emotions to be a part of his world yet. There's no reason for it. So I just really made an effort to kind of like be very calm and chill. And not to say that's like what to do or whatever, but he is very calm and chill and happy baby. So it worked out well for me. Whether that's why he's that way, I don't know, but it seemed to do the trick for me.
Well, yeah, I bet it had a lot of effect.
And turned then I'm like a much more, chill parent now too, which is kind of cool.
So, talk a little bit about your background. Because I don't
Yeah.
know. I met you
So,
like how many years ago? 2 years ago?
I think so. 2 years ago, right?
You had just gotten pregnant. And it was at this
Yeah.
motorcycle camp out for women in Pennsylvania. Super
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Super awesome. So happy to meet you. And so you actually met me after I'd kind of like made that decision to be this like calm, normal person. So like you only know that side of me and don't know the flip side. So I was just a very unique individual as a child. I'm an artist, obviously. As you know, I guess your listeners wouldn't know that, obviously. I'm an artist. I grew up as an artist and just had always had a different outlook on the world. And as a result of that, I never really fit in to the peer groups that I was exposed to, mainly through school, because that's like, right, when you're a kid, that's primarily what your groups are.
Yeah.
So I grew up going to a private school and was just tortured. Like I was the runt in the class. I was the youngest. I was the smallest. I, had this kind of different outlook on life and just was so not accepted and not like it was pretty awful.
Was this in New York?
This was not. I'm from Colorado originally.
Okay.
So I grew up, I was born in Aspen, and then spent most of my life down in Denver. But my family actually has a hotel up in Aspen, so kind of going up there all the time. So when my hometown is really Aspen, even though I didn't really live there as I was growing up. Like that's like where my home is. And so I was in Denver going to this private school, and it just was such a struggle. Educationally, it was fantastic, but in terms of that like socializing, it was just so bad. And so finally, my parents like decided to take me out and put me into public school and see if just a different environment would be better for me. And so socially, I did really well at public school, but school-wise, academically, I did so bad because I was so far ahead.
Yeah, you were like bored there.
So I just like, I never did my homework. I was always getting in trouble for not doing the assignments. I had like detention on lunch all the time. I had this like awful teacher that just like hated my guts too. So that didn't help. So I like bounced back and forth between public school and private school for a really long time. I was homeschooled for a little while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like 6 months, not like you guys were.
Still, like you've experienced it all. It's hard to meet people like that.
It's true. I have experienced it all when it comes to education. So I again, like finally it was middle school. I'd started out in public school and then gone back to private school. And then that just like wasn't working. So my mom was like, you know what, I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me. So my sister at the time was a toddler. And my mom was kind of like, well, why don't we homeschool you and you can like be home with me and like, your sister and you can help me with her and that kind of deal. So it was I think it was a year and a half that I was homeschooled for. So it was like a good chunk.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of time.
For sure. So, and then high school started and this private school that I had bounced back and forth from did not have a high school. So that was like not an option. So I went to public school and I was bored. I was really, really bored academically. So I just was like, you know what? I'm in high school. Like this doesn't matter to the rest of my life. Like I wasn't one of those kids that's like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Ivy League. Like I was like, whatever, this is high school. Like this isn't on my permanent record. Like my future school, my future jobs are going to care about college. They're not going to look at your high school transcript. So I like never went to class. I partied like a ton. I was going to raves. I was doing all kinds of drugs. I was just going crazy and just having fun. I was a kid. Like, why not?
How did your parents feel about it? Did they know?
They knew. I was never like a really good like liar. I've always just kind of been like, oh, like this is who I am. Like, deal with it. So it was middle of sophomore year, and I was going to truancy court because like Colorado state law, like you actually have to go to school certain number of days per year. And I was falling behind that because I was ditching so many classes. And so I had to go to truancy court. And my parents decided to send me away. So it was just a really, I think, crazy time for my family of like what was going on. My sister was, a toddler. My parents were kind of going through a rough time at the time. And I think it was just, too much for my mom. And it was like, okay, one of these things needs to change. And like, she couldn't, make my dad go away. She couldn't make my toddler sister go away. So it was like, okay, you're the one, get out. So I like actually begged them to like kick me out and like let me like become a street kid and like live my life.
Okay, so when you say like kicked you out, like you weren't going to boarding school or anything. You were literally just going out on your own.
I begged them to do that. Okay. What they did, because my parents are like super awesome and so supportive and caring and just like really wonderful people. They found a program in Texas that was like specifically for troubled teens. So it was boarding school. They call it boarding school. When I explain what it is to people, I call it boarding school just because people can kind of understand that a little bit more. Right. But it was not boarding school. Like this was like therapy camp for kids.
Okay.
So we literally had therapy like 6 days a week. We had personal, like private sessions. We had all kinds of different group sessions with like our house would have a session, and then like they'd put us in all these other groups with other kids that were there. And it was just a lot of therapy and talking through. And I think their main mission was like not to just like label us as like bad and troubled kids. Right. Their mission was to be like, okay, what's going on that's causing this behavior?
And this was in addition to all your normal school stuff too.
Yes.
You were doing school there as well.
School there as well. We started out, it was a level system. So you started out at level 0. You were in this one house that was like more like prison, where you like had to wear like literally gray t-shirts. You had chores. We homeschooled there. We weren't allowed to go to school. So it was all through correspondence classes.
Wow, sounds like inpatient.
Yeah, basically, totally basically inpatient. And then, as you moved up the level system and like they like realized like you weren't going to hurt yourself, because obviously like cutting was a huge thing. There was a lot of like self-mutilation that was going on.
With you or with like all the other people?
I did a little bit. Actually, I did a little bit before I went. I didn't really do anything there. I've always just been like too smart for my own good. So by the time I got to this thing, I was like, okay, I'm here, and the expectations were very clear. And so it was like, I don't want to be here. So I saw other kids that like would act out and rebel, and like, if you would get in trouble in the like inpatient area, like that school, you would get sent to like wilderness camp, where like they literally like drop you in the woods and you have to like learn basic survival skills.
Oh my God. So there's something more extreme than that.
Yes, totally. Yes, there is. There is.
So you just kind of put your head down to get through it?
Exactly. I was like, you know what? I like don't want to be here. I don't want to like have this go on for years and years and years. Like I want to get back to my life. And so I just was like, I'm going to be that person and like, okay, do all the things. And I did. And I actually like got through the program as fast as you possibly can. Like, cause there are kind of times like you have to be on this level for 2 months. And then if you're meeting all these expectations and you are doing this, then you can move up to the next one. So I hit every time I like hit the mark and was moving up and moving up and moving up.
Did you feel like you were working on the issues themselves, or were you just kind of like saying what they wanted to say or what they wanted to hear?
So while I was there is when we kind of really started to dive into like my mental health. So I am diagnosed ADHD, like severe ADHD, and manic depressive. And when I first started there, they obviously push for medication to kind of manage what's going on with you. Right. And my mom is like, we're like holistic family. Like I never took antibiotics as a kid. Like we're like, don't go to the doctor because you're sick. Like you don't put these chemicals into your body. So my mom really fought against putting me on any medication at first. And eventually she did like cave into it and allowed them to like put me on medication and different, we tried a few different things. And to answer your question, I definitely do think that there was some like going through, but quite honestly, like I didn't really have like major issues that was causing my behavior. I just was a teenager and like wanted to have fun, like I wasn't rebelling because I was like angry at my parents. I was just like, fuck high school. Like I'm going to party.
Fair enough.
So I can't, it's hard to say. And God, that like, keep in mind that like I'm old. And so this was like almost 20 years ago. Not quite that. It's like 18 years ago now. So it's, a little bit hard to really remember like so many of the details of kind of what was going on at the time. But there definitely were some like issues and things that happened. And so I do like, for me, it was such a wonderful experience in the sense that like I came out of it like so self-aware. So as I was getting older and going to college and all these other things were happening, and I, obviously like anyone does, struggling with like, what's my place in this world and like, what am I doing? And, as anyone does, like I just came at it with a very educated perspective of like not getting so wrapped up in like this is the end all be all, but being able to have what is the word that I'm looking for?
I mean, as someone who has gone through a lot of life experience, like I do look up to you as someone who has some insight on that, because it's hard when you're going through it.
It's super hard as you're going through it to have like I really want to use this word. I can't think of it. It's going to drive me crazy.
Not perspective. I don't know.
I mean, kind of perspective of just like understanding that like what was happening at the time, like it would pass, like this isn't the end of the world. This isn't going to be something that it's going on forever. And also like understanding that like other people are going through shit too.
Yeah.
So like as much as I think I never took the perspective of like, I'm always right and you're wrong, like in any like kind of conflict or anything, like it was always like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. And kind of like maybe dragging that out of other people of like, okay, like I understand this is what's going on with you, but like what's deeper, I think is kind of what it really taught me is like what's deeper, because I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to like conflict, there's kind of this surface level of what's happening of like, oh, you left the toilet seat up and I'm going to like freak out at you.
Yeah.
But like, not what it's about. It's about deeper things in our relationship, not that that's like what's going on in my relationship at all, because it's not, but just as an example, just kind of always looking what's deeper, instead of taking things for like face value.
Just like looking at the big picture and like how that'll affect you in the long run.
Totally. It was a really strange experience, I think. And like I said, I tell people it was boarding school because it's really hard for people to understand like what it was like and what we went through. And I was with a friend that I met through there, and I'm drawing a blank as to where we were, what was going on, but I just remember saying like, oh, we met at boarding school, and their reaction was like, oh, is that what you told me?
You mean the fucking prison?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, I think again, like there is part of that, like we don't publicly share our like mental wellness because like there is a fear of that judgment and there is a fear of like, okay, what the fuck is wrong with you? So
yeah,
I think that there is a little bit of that is just being protective of not wanting to be like, oh yeah, I got like sent off to like mental health like lockup when I was in high school, because like I mean I don't want to be judged.
How old were you when you got out?
So I was 16 when I got out.
Okay, and so like you said, that was like 20 years ago. So what happened after that?
I wouldn't say it really changed my behavior in any way. Unfortunately for my parents, they did not want me to go back into the habits that I had before, and they did not want me to have the same friends that I had before. So when I got out, my family actually moved up to Aspen for me to finish school up there. And yeah, so it was just kind of like a fresh start. However, Aspen is a party town. So like, it was where our family was. So it made sense from that standpoint of like needing the support or wanting that support. But like my mom grew up there and she actually sent herself away to boarding school. She went to just like regular traditional boarding school. Okay. Because like she was partying so much.
Oh, wow. So it's like history repeating itself kind of.
Exactly. I'm like, Mom, what were you thinking? Like, why would she do that? So I got out at the very end of my junior year. Now, it's actually really kind of interesting. I ended up basically doing my entire high school education in that 1 year. So because I was getting truancy before I left, I was behind I was behind my sophomore year. And then I obviously was there for my junior year. But I also was doing, once I was able to, they did let you go, like you could earn going to public school as like part of when you got to a certain level and like you could go to public school. So while I was going to public school for my junior year, I was actually also taking correspondence classes. Damn. So, I mean, there wasn't anything else to do. Mind you, this was also in like Hicksville, East Texas. Like literally it was like 20 minutes from the Louisiana border. Like there was like nothing.
Oh, wow. Say no more.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyone listening from there. I don't think there's anyone. But
I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. It's beautiful country. Like we had horses. It was wonderful. Like I loved it. Lots of good memories, but like it's really boring.
So then you went to Aspen, Party City.
So then I went to Aspen, Party City, and this is terrible. So I came out like, I think like a month before junior year ended. So I went to school. I went to public school in Aspen for that final month of junior year so that I could like get to know people before we started the summer. Summer started my senior year, and I think I made it through like a month and a half, and I got expelled.
Oh, fuck.
So,
starting off on a great note.
Seriously, right? Like just what you would hope. I won't like dive into that because it's like not important details. But there were certain people at the school that were like out to get me. And my mom had actually like, my mom is awesome. She like done like my defender like forever. She had hired a lawyer. Like we were going after the school because I was like wrongfully being expelled. But I just kind of looked at her and I was like, Mom, like I don't want to be here. They don't want me here. Like, can we just like figure something else out? And at that point, I only needed like 4 classes to graduate. So like 4 single semester classes. So I ended up just doing a couple correspondence classes and a couple classes at the college. And like I spent my entire senior year snowboarding every day. So
wow, that sounds awesome actually.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I
mean, the important thing is that you finished. I mean,
I did.
So
I did. I got a diploma. I did finish. And then, yeah, it was good. It was good. I made it out. I made it out alive. I think that was one of my mom's fears. Like, you know, to her, like, defense, like, she just didn't really know what was going on with me. Like, she didn't realize that it was because I was so smart. Like, I should have been put in advanced placement classes. And I think that if I had been, I definitely, like, my life would have been very, very different because I love to learn and I really like to be challenged. But I just, again, like, I was so bored. I just was like, screw this.
Now that you're a mom yourself, do you see that the school system has changed to accommodate kids like you were? Or is that something you're worried about for your son?
I'm worried about it for my son for sure. I think that the educational system has probably gotten a lot worse since I was a kid.
Wow.
You know, just like from what and maybe it's the internet of just like what you read and what you hear of just, I also find it to be a very outdated system. You know, they're still teaching the same curriculum they were from 50 years ago. And it's like, we're not, like our society has changed so much, but our educational system hasn't changed at all. And so that really does worry me. But the ADHD, for me, it's just like, it's really hard to explain what it's like to live with ADHD. I think that there's been people that I've said, oh, I have like ADHD, and they're like, oh yeah, so does everybody. And it's like, okay, I get God. Like, yes, in our society, like people are distracted more often and there's so many other things pulling you a different direction. And I get that, but it's hard to explain what it's like. It's just crazy. Like, you can't finish a thought. Like, I mean, my poor husband puts up with it all the time of like, I'm like, I'll literally like be walking in circles because my brain is just like working so fast and like thinking about this and this. Oh, I gotta do that. Oh, I gotta do that. Oh, I gotta do that. And it's just like, it's really hard. It's really, really hard.
So when were you diagnosed? When you were in Texas?
It actually took longer. I wasn't diagnosed until I was much older. And it really came because again, like I said, my mom was very holistic. She was really against any kind of medication. And a lot of like my actual diagnoses have come when she finally will admit that there's an issue. And it comes from like, she has it as well. Like, she has it as well, very severe. And I think it finally really came into effect when she like was like, I have ADHD, and like started taking medication for it. And I will never forget the day that my mom like called me and told me like, hey, I'm taking medication for ADHD. It's awesome.
Oh my God. Just so you guys, did you guys talk about mental health growing up?
For sure. Oh, for sure. It's always been an open discussion with my family, for sure. Struggling with mental health runs in my family. So there's definitely an openness to discussing it. There's no like stigma around it, as I know I'm sure other people deal with, and that kind of fear of being able to like talk openly about what's going on with their parents. I didn't experience that. My mom's biggest thing was literally just the medication and like putting this chemical into your body because they're so like holistic and like eating organic and all, you know.
And that's so it's a fear hard. A lot of people have, you know. Sometimes it's trial and error to find a med that works for you. We talked about it in previous episodes. Like, it's scary.
It's very scary. It's very hard. And I think, you know, I think it's really, really difficult for a psychiatrist to really understand what's actually going on in a short session. One, because like, obviously you can tell them what you want to hear, but two, like for me being manic depressive, like you could catch me on a good day and everything's great, and you could catch me on a bad day and everything is the worst, you know? So
explain that diagnosis for the listeners.
So that actually came, again, it's come later. Like when I was in Texas, they actually diagnosed me as bipolar tendencies because I had a lot of anger. I actually, as I've gotten older, I've really, really realized that more of it was about PMS and hormones than anything. But because you're in a meeting, I mean, yeah, I had a therapist, but the psychiatrist is the one that's like giving these diagnoses out, right? You're sitting with a psychiatrist for an hour a month. Like how deep and how much can he really understand in such a short amount of time? Sure, he's got like input and feedback from like your other counselors that you're talking to, but like really, it's just a really difficult and flawed system. And it's something where I feel so adamant about people like being their own advocates and not just like taking what they're told of like, oh, you have this, you're, textbook this, because it's not, there's so many factors that I just don't think we look at enough. And honestly, for me as an adult now and having had a child and being a woman, like women's health is so not explored and not understood, like in a way that it's so infuriating that there are like lawmakers that are trying to make laws about our bodies when like they don't even understand what it's like. And I think it's taken me a really long time to understand that mental health is so much more than just what you're thinking and what you're feeling. That there are, especially for women,
hormones have a huge role to play.
Oh my God, that like come into play. That like it's not all the time. Again, like if you're seeing a psychiatrist when you're PMSing, like it's going to be one thing. Like I'm a completely different person, depending on what week it is. And just getting to know myself better and understanding that that is a huge factor in my mental health has been so like freeing, and also like really helped me to evaluate like what is the right treatment for me. Because it doesn't have to be like medication. I think, and I'm not like anti-medication by any means. Like, I think it's phenomenal. There definitely were points in my life that like I probably would be dead if I wasn't put on medication. I am not a huge fan of like it being a crutch, as I think it gets used for a lot in our society.
It's not the end all be all, like you said.
It's not. It's not the answer. It's a temporary fix, in my mind, at least. And I understand that there are people that are suffering from other things that it's like, hey, if you are bipolar, like take your medication. Like, don't feel good and be like, I don't need this. Like, no, you do. But I think that there are other ways, especially through like working out and diet. Like diet is a huge, huge, huge part of it. And I think that that's something that really is not explored enough when it comes to talking about mental health. Like what else are you putting into your body? Because GMO and all of these other things, like that all plays a factor in like what's going on. It's such a like, and not that I know by any means, but the chemicals, like we're understanding so much more. And like, if you're putting something into your body that like doesn't agree with it, like, or can be like possibly triggering it. And
I feel like everything has a ripple effect.
Like that, for sure. Like that, if you're only like looking at like scenarios and like what's going on in your life, like what's triggering you, like it could very well be what you're eating. And you're not realizing that because like that's just not something that is really discussed so much when it comes to talking about mental health.
Yeah, so I think it's a good point to look at the whole picture. Like it's easy to isolate your mental health from everything else, but it's literally everything has an effect on it.
It does.
So you have spent a lot of time thinking about all this stuff. Were there any pivotal moments in your journey, I guess, that helped you come to this point?
I wouldn't say like there's been like super pivotal moments or
just
people
like living life.
Living life. And again, like that boarding school that I went to, just from a young age, kind of being forced to really look at yourself and self-evaluation. That has been like just, I think, such a wonderful gift for me as a human. I'm like getting teary about it because I like seriously feel like it was such a wonderful thing that my mother gave to me to like allow me to really understand myself.
Yeah.
And granted, like I still struggle. Like when I became pregnant, I stopped taking the ADHD medication because obviously like I was again like living for someone else. I'm like not wanting to like shove crack into a system at a young age. So I haven't been on it, and it's really, really hard. It's really hard to not be taking it. And again, I try to manage things through diet and exercise as well, but it's just like nothing can replace.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the ADHD, that's not something I've talked to any other guests with yet. Do you kind of want to go into your experiences with that and like how it's changed through your pregnancy? And like how it affects you now?
Yeah, I guess it's really difficult because it affects everybody in such different ways. But for me personally, it just makes like completing tasks, understanding priorities, like being able to like focus on something. It makes life like incredibly difficult.
And for you as a small business owner, that must get really annoying.
It's really, really hard. And in so many ways, it's really held my business back. And it sucks.
First of all, do you want to tell the listeners about your business real quick?
Sure, yeah. So I studied photography. And when I moved to New York, I was a producer. I worked in high-end fashion, did like huge worldwide campaigns, worked with amazing artists. And I was so miserable in the fashion industry. It was really awful.
And when was that?
I started my business 5 years ago. So I moved to New York almost 10 years ago. So this was 10 years ago. I worked in that industry for almost 5 years. And it just got to a point that I was working for an agency, and I mean, literally like dream job, working with like massive artists, massive campaigns, like all the top fashion magazines, Vogue, W, Love, like just really doing some wonderful stuff. And I couldn't stop work. Like I couldn't, because of the ADHD, I could not turn my brain off. Like I thrive when I'm busy. And so I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going. And so that's kind of what was happening. And in order for me to sleep, like I would leave my work and I would go to the bar and I would stay at the bar until bars close here at 4. So I'd be at the bar until 4 a.m. Close the bar down, and like just had to get like shit faced and black out because that was literally like the only way that I could turn my brain off to sleep.
And had you been diagnosed at that point with ADHD?
I had been. I wasn't taking any medication because, again, with like the manic depressive, when you're thriving like that and it's you don't want to stop. You're busy and you're going and it's like it feels good. You're like, yeah, I'm accomplishing all this stuff. I'm doing it. I'm moving. I'm grooving. Like this is awesome. But like it was just so physically unhealthy, and that just like came to a point of like I can't. I was just like miserable, and not to mention like being treated like garbage. Like I'm working this hard and literally like destroying my body doing this. And then like, you don't know, thank you. Like as a producer, like you don't get any credit. You don't get any thank yous. Like if everything goes well, all the artists get everything. And like, you don't even get mentioned. You bending over backwards to help these people and do all this stuff and make all this stuff happen. Like you're the one that's making it happen. You know, it's their vision or whatever, but like, you're the one that's like actually making sure people are there and people are fed and like all the elements are correct for them to like create that. Like, you know, you're the one that's doing it, and like, no, thank you. And then of course, like if anything goes wrong, it's your fault. So
was recognition something that was important to you then?
Totally. And I think that's definitely part of like why I ended up leaving. Cause I was just like, I am a creative. I've been an artist my whole life. I am a creative. And like, it was kind of like, you know, just sitting on the sidelines as like the towel boy, you know, being like, and then eventually being like, wait, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
But it does look really great on paper. It's one of those things you just have to try it out.
It does. And I did enjoy it. I learned so much. I mean, like, I produced worldwide. And so, like, I can make shit happen anywhere, which is an amazing thing for me, like, as a motorcyclist, right? Like, you're riding, you're on the road, like, you're by yourself, shit goes wrong. Like, I think that's part of why I'm never afraid, because, like, I can make anything happen anywhere. I mean, granted, like, whatever, not anything, but, like, I know how to make things happen and get things done.
You can handle your shit.
Exactly. So, like, it was amazing. It was a wonderful gift to get to do that and to have those opportunities. But again, it was just like destroying me. And so I ended up quitting my job and starting my business. And honestly, like, I think that I just wanted something different so badly that I didn't, and probably this is part of the ADHD. Like, I suck at planning. And so I was just like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to like make leather bags. And that's what I'm doing with my life now. I have been working with leather since I was in college. It was something I always enjoyed. And like, ended up quitting my job in February. And I remember sitting in November with my aunt being like, I've got to quit my job. Like, I'm so miserable. And she was like, okay, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I never really like thought about like what it was I really wanted to do. And honestly, all that came to mind was to like make leather bags. I've been doing it forever. I loved it. It's so like meditative.
They are gorgeous leather bags too. You guys should go look up Rachael's business. What's the name and like where can they find it?
Doomed NYC. DOOMED NYC, like New York City. You can check us out. We're on Instagram.
And you don't just make bags either. Like, I have your pins. They're gorgeous.
Yeah. So
like
it's a
shirts.
full like lifestyle brand. So it started out just with the bags. And then, I kind of really realized like me hand making every individual piece is like not realistic. So we started to add in these other things so people could get a part of the brand. You know, also the cost of a handmade bag is expensive. So we added these other pieces in to kind of be more affordable for people that, really wanted to be a part of the brand but couldn't quite afford them yet. Or, just adding in pieces that isn't completely made by me because I couldn't, it's been 5 years now and I'm just finally to a point where I'm kind of caught up with my list of to-dos.
It's hard.
It's really, really hard. We've had some other obstacles. I was in a really bad motorcycle accident and shattered one of my arms. I was in a cast for 9 months. So
I
that,
remember that.
when you hand make bags and like, you don't have an arm to use for like basically a year, there's not much business going on. So there's been, setbacks, and then obviously like getting pregnant.
Yeah.
And so, although like I will tell you, like I pushed that kid out and I was back in my studio after a week. Just because the time of year, he's born at the end of October, and Christmas, I do like corporate gifts and different things. And the holidays are just like insane time for me. And so I had a big order for a client and was just like, sorry.
So how do you, bringing it back to mental health, like how do you balance that all out and stay healthy when everything's crazy?
I don't have that figured out. I don't have an answer to tell you. When my ADHD is managed, my manic depressive really subsides a lot. And I think that like it's more like manic depressive tendencies because I go through these phases of like being like super on fire and excited about what the projects I'm working on and being like, this is so cool. I love this. To then the flip side of it where I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? I'm just like not being able to get anything done.
I've heard about manic depressive episodes being described as like the highs are really high and the lows are really low. Would you feel like that applies to you? For sure. And I also have just recently read something that said that basically the point of the article was that manic depressive is like the worst for productiveness. Oh, wonderful.
All of them. It's like the worst because literally like how you're feeling affects how much you can get done. And then like add in ADHD to that and be like, I don't know how I own my own business. But I think that for me, it's just been about like, it's been a journey. I have to say that it's been a really, really long and hard journey. Just figuring out like how to have a business, how to be creative, how to, love what you're doing after the joy has been sucked out of it, how to manage like getting stuff done. Because I've had plenty of pissed off customers that are like, I don't understand why you're taking forever to get this done. And I'm just like, yeah, I know that you don't understand. I can't explain it to you, but like mentally I struggle. And how do you say that to a client?
You can't.
Like,
it sounds like a cop out. It sounds like
I can't, I'm not trying to put you off, but like I really just like have too much on my plate and I'm struggling. It's definitely been easier to say that since I had a kid. Not to say that like gives me an excuse, but it does. Like people are a lot more understanding of like, oh, you have a child. Versus like, oh, you have mental health issues. Like
that's so important to talk about because it is something that affects everyone's productivity, but it isn't something people talk about. Like it's easier to say I have a cold or I had a kid. You can't just tell someone I'm in a depressive episode. Like no one's gonna give a shit.
I'm in a depressive episode. I haven't gone on my couch for 2 days. Like, sorry, I'm just not that excited about this project as you are. But, I don't really have an answer. I like medication for me it's really helpful. It's like night and day difference. But again, like I'm currently not taking it. I have been off it for a couple of years and there's a huge difference in my quality of life and the quality of my business when I am taking it. But I also realize that like now is an important time where like, you have to make sacrifices for your family.
Yeah.
And as much as it's a difficulty for me as a business owner to take that step back. Like I also understand that like it's so much better for me as a mom to do what's best for my child.
Yeah, for sure.
Just hope and pray that he never has to deal with it.
And that's the scary thing. Like you just don't know.
You don't. So like I mentioned, my mom has it too. And I was just thinking about it this afternoon of like, okay, we're going to get on this call and like, what am I going to say? Like, but, there's so many things I watched my mother do growing up and was like, I will never do that. I will never do that.
Yep. And then what happens?
Like, sure enough, like, it's just like, it's in you, and there's not as much as you want to like fight who you are. Like, you really just can't. Like, if you have it, you have it. And that's like, not again, like there are lifestyle changes and obviously being really aware of it makes things a little bit different and a little bit, I think, easier to deal with. Me finding out in my 20s versus, my mom finding out in her 50s. Like, you know, just imagine that, like, and what can be done in that time. So it's cool. It's great. It's nice for me. You know, hopefully for my kids, it can be something that I'm aware of. And it's so funny. Actually, this is really funny. The moment that my mother realized that I had ADHD was my parents got divorced when I was 21 or something like that. And so I was out of the house, but my sister is 10 years younger than me. So my sister was like 10. And my sister was in therapy, obviously kind of going through counseling and everything to deal with what was going on with the family. But they had my mom like take a test of like, hey, does your child have let's just try, you know, whatever, for ADHD. My mom was like, oh, none of this fits for Rebecca, but it all fits perfectly for Rachel. And that was like it was a really big realization for my mom of being like, oh my God, like that's why you've been like this. You know, and
pieces fit together.
Seriously. I mean, it's crazy when those things just like click into place. I don't know.
Do you think that changed the way she interacted with you after that?
Definitely. And I think she became a lot more, I think for her, like, especially when she started taking medication for it, like once she personally experienced it, which is tough to say that, like that she had to experience it personally to really be able to understand it for me. So that was really it, was like once she really started taking medication. And honestly, I medicated myself in college. I had a friend that had, you know, he didn't have ADHD, but like had been prescribed it because I think when we were kids, like they were just like, let's give every kid like Adderall. So we like would trade, and I would like give him back rubs, and he would like give me his ADHD medication.
Hey, so whatever works.
I like helped myself, medicated myself for a long time. And I mean, quite honestly, it was actually once I had kind of figured out that that's what was going on with me, it was really hard for me to actually see a psychiatrist that would prescribe it.
That's so messed up because
it's just crazy.
It's like you were saying earlier, ADHD is one of those terms that's kind of tossed around as a joke, but it is a real thing, but it's also, I feel like, hard to prove.
It's hard to prove, and I think that like it's really interesting because I think when kids are in school and they're struggling, like they're like, oh, whatever, he's got ADHD, give him some Adderall, that'll fix the problem, you know? But then like once you get into college, they start to treat you like you're like a drug addict and like you're there to try and get drugs out of them.
Well, what do they expect? That's how they raised you. That's how society turned you out.
Seriously, I don't know. So it was really hard. And even here in New York, as a 30-year-old woman going to doctors, it took me a really long time here to find a doctor that would prescribe it. Like I went to a woman for like 6 months and I was like, this is why I'm here. Like this is like what my goal is. This is why I'm here. I literally want this. And she had literally all these other things that I had to do. I had to like stop drinking. I had to like start doing all these things. And I did all of them. And it was like 6 months. And I don't know if like she was just fucking with me. And like, I don't know if she didn't actually have a license to be able to prescribe medication. Like, I don't know what it was, but I saw her for 6 months being like, I am here. Like from the get-go, I am here for Adderall. Like that's why I'm here. I know that I have this. It runs in my family. Here's my like history. Like I'm not just trying to get drugs to like sell on the street. Like I literally need this to be a normal functioning human being. It's really hard. It's really hard.
What are some ways that you cope now that you're off the meds?
Oh, it's a lot of diet. There are different, like chia seeds are really great.
For
just
ADHD?
Different. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I just think like herbally, I also have like a really fantastic herbalist by me that is like her goal is all about like using natural remedies to help deal with things too. So I try and meet with her. She gives me different teas and tinctures and different things. And it's something that like we constantly are evaluating because it is changing. And obviously with like having the kid, like what's safe at that time and like what's going on because it does change. It's not one pill or whatever. One tincture is going to be the solution. That's going to work forever. Like, life changes, scenarios change, your habits change. And it's important to make sure that you're dealing with your mental health as well and allowing that to be flexible. I don't think that there's ever like a set stone of like, okay, we got it figured out. It's all handled. You're good to go, Carol.
Yes.
You
Oh
know,
my
like
God,
that
yes.
doesn't happen.
I
So
think flexibility is like a huge takeaway, is that like if anything, there's not going to be a solution that's always going to fix your problems. Like it's might change over the years. Like what works for you and when you're 30 might not work for you now, you know.
exactly, exactly. And again, for women specifically, tune into your like hormonally what's going on because again, like when I was at that school, like they diagnosed me as bipolar. And it wasn't that I was bipolar. I PMS'd so hard. Like I got enraged when I was PMSing. Like I
Oh
literally
my
wanted to
God.
kill people when I was PMSing.
I could do a whole
And
episode on that.
you should. I'm not sure if it's that, hormones now that I'm older have stabilized or that I'm more aware of it or now, now that I've had a kid, it's not as bad. But like my husband, like he knows and he can vouch for like that. It's crazy. I'm a different person when I'm PMSing versus when I'm not. And we would always get in fights. And I finally like said to him, this was actually pretty recently. I said to him, I was like, listen, babe, there's like 1 week a month that I just like really need you to be like overly attentive and overly nice to me. 1 week a month. The rest of the time, like whatever, it's fine. But like this 1 week, and you know it, like this is not a secret. Like just fucking get on page with me. Like if I need to put like a, post-it note on the cabinet, hey, I'm PMSing, like I will. But like, as my partner, like just know I'm going to be easily triggered this week.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together for 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
So he should know by now.
But, whatever. He's got his own stuff going on, too. Like, it's hard to put that on him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you need to make sure that I'm okay while I'm PMSing. Like, that's not really fair. It's not his responsibility. But again, like as a partner, a spouse, like you can be aware of like when that's going on and just like, hey, honey, here's some cookies.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about communicating when you are going through that. Sometimes you need a Post-it note.
Yeah.
It's not easy being in a relationship with a mentally like ill person. I don't like using that term, but you know what I mean? Like, but there's things we can do too.
Definitely. And, I think that like as a spouse, like it is important to be understanding and to know that what's happening in that moment, like it's not, again, for you, like for me and for you to know, like that's not forever. That's not everything. It's like my mind is wrapped up in something crazy right now. And like that doesn't mean that that's like a reflection on our relationship all the time. Like in this moment, yeah, maybe. But like it's not always like that.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I don't always feel that way. So
yep.
That's hard. I think it's just having understanding for each other, I think is just so important. Everybody's got their own shit.
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for people who might be diagnosed with ADHD, but they don't have a lot of resources?
Oh man, I would like to say be an advocate for yourself. And like one thing that's really helped me was like keeping a journal and just like, I know it sounds silly, but like marking. And that was really when I started to like correlate the like PMS, my episodes would be like, I started a journal and just like noting of like when I'm struggling and when I'm on my period and those different things. And
what
just
you
kind
say
of
marking, what does that mean?
Well, I just mean like marking it in a journal. Being
okay.
like today I feel like crap. Today I'm like super angry and like the littlest things are setting me off and I don't know why. The other thing that I personally really have resonated, or what's really resonated with me, is paying attention to the moon cycles, because we are, as humans, like 70% water. And I think that really, really important to, I mean, for me, astrology and like that's always been a part of my life. And I just think it's really important. I don't think really important. I just think it's another resource that you can look at to try and understand what's going on with you. Because I think it is just, think like when you're trying to go and talk to somebody, like you're obviously like you're looking for answers, you're looking to figure it out. And I think it's hard because you can't, like I said, you can't really count on someone that you talk to once a month to be able to really give you insight. And I think the more really just like facts and data that you can like bring to them is going to really help them understand it as well as you. Like once you start paying attention to it, like you really get to know yourself so much more. Tracking like your periods, tracking the moon cycles, tracking like what you're eating, tracking, I just think like once you, by tracking it, can gain so much insight and really start to understand, because you're making that conscious effort to be like, okay, what's going on? What's setting me off? Instead of just being like, oh, I have ADHD. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And like, I think it's really hard, like the whole like labeling system of like, oh, I have this. Oh, I've been diagnosed with this. Oh, I have this. Because I think that can be a cop-out sometimes of like, oh, well, I have ADHD, so like I'm not good at that. It's like, well, it could be a weakness of yours. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't get good at it or you can't learn to manage it or, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
for
like,
sure.
In terms of resources, again, I've struggled. It's been really hard. It's been really, really hard for me to find. And I think just like, don't think that like the first person you see or talk to is going to be the one. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. You will eventually find someone that is able to hear you, but it's hard. It's really hard to find them. It's like finding a boyfriend, like that's hard, right? So like,
amen.
How are you going to find like a therapist that's supposed to understand you too? Like that's going to be a hard task too. So
what if there was like a Tinder for therapists?
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
You heard it here first, you guys.
I feel like they have those new like apps that you can like text. I'm feeling bad today.
Oh yeah, like
yeah. There's other ones of like you could text somebody, which I really wonder if it is because I've read so much about like AI and like they have like there is an app out there where you can like upload your like dead friends' emails and like social media accounts into them, and then like you can talk to your dead friend. I'm not kidding. This is a real thing.
Oh my God, that's like a Black Mirror episode in real life.
It is.
That literally happened on that show.
It did, and it is actually based on a true, real thing in real life.
Oh my God, that's freaky.
Upload all the emails, all the social media accounts, and then you can text with this person. And granted, it's just AI. So anyway, the point that I was getting to is that I wonder those apps if you're actually talking to a real person or
oh my God.
Like an AI that they've created to be like, how are you feeling today?
If any of you guys have experience with these therapists, let us know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear if someone's like found success with them or if they've found them helpful at all.
For sure. But in the meantime, be your own advocate. I love that you said that because that's honestly like the best piece of advice. Like, yeah,
just like don't let yourself be a victim to what they tell you. Like, don't let that like the stamp or the label that they put upon you be the dictator for your life because it's somebody's opinion. Like,
yes,
right? They're just opinions. Like
you have agency. You're your own person.
Exactly.
Well, this was fun. I have to run to work now.
Yay! Sorry, I know I'm a blabber. I talk a lot.
No, I love it. The time went by so fast with you. I wish we could talk for like more, but I'm so glad we finally did this.
Me too.
Thank
I hope
you so
people
much.
find it helpful. I hope that people find it, good. Like I said, I'm super nervous. I'm not one to put it out there, but I think it's really important to talk about. Have a wonderful day at work.
Thanks, and you have a good day too.
Thanks.
Bye. Hey guys, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to follow Pickles and Vodka on social media, I'm on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast, Facebook, same thing. I do have a Twitter that I rarely use, but you can follow me there at my handle, Pickles Vodka. You can also email me at picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com with literally anything. I love hearing about how you liked the episodes. If you have a topic you really want me to address, bring it to me. I love it when people ask if they can be on the show. I even had someone say, oh, I would love to be on your show, but I don't think I'm interesting enough. Let me tell you, I think everyone is super interesting and everyone has different stories that people can find relatable and that shouldn't be bottled up pertaining to mental health. So hit me up if you want to be a guest. I have so many great episodes in the works and I can't wait to share them with you guys. I hope your week is off to a great start. I know March was shitty for a lot of people, but April will be different. Love you guys. Have a good week and take care of yourselves. Bye.